Welcome to a Sleepover with Yuri. If you've ever been categorized as a minority, whether for being an immigrant or LGBTQ or a person of color, well, guess what? You are in a majority on my show. A Sleepover with Yuri is a show that celebrates diversity, promotes equality, raises awareness, spreads love. Today, more New Yorkers are experiencing homelessness than ever before. In a city of more than 8.3 million people, nearly 1 in every 106 New Yorkers is homeless. That's nearly 80,000 men, women, and children. Every night, nearly 4,000 people sleep on the street, in the subway system, or in other public spaces. However, the vast majority of New Yorkers experiencing homelessness spend the night within the city's shelter system where they remain unseen. For every person sleeping on sidewalks or on trains, 20 more are sleeping in shelters. Today, I want to find out about homelessness and everything that comes with it with my next guest who experienced homelessness, Alexander. Hey, Alexander.
Hey, Yuri, thank you so much for the invitation.
Of course, thank you so much for taking the invitation and being here.
Yeah.
So excited. It's been a while that I saw you last time.
Yeah.
So it's a good reunion.
Yeah.
And,
a little early for a sleepover, but.
I know, right? Who would have thought? What are you wearing, by the way? What is this?
Well, these are my flannels. When it's getting colder, and I usually sleep naked, so I wouldn't be wearing anything. But
And I'm not even surprised. I'm not. I think 95 or I would say 99% of all of my guests told me they sleep naked.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess it says something about me, I guess.
Yeah.
Alexander, so I met you a couple years ago, and what really stuck with me about you, what I remember about you, is that you shared that you experienced homelessness, and there was a time in your life where you were homeless for a few years, and not homeless as in couch surfing, because a lot of people, have been there and are there now, but you were homeless. Is that correct?
Yeah, it wasn't for a long time, but it was enough to, experience what's that like. I think when you talk about homelessness, there's so many different variations of, how it happens. For me, many people, it came out of the family, a fractured family, obviously. Usually parenting that was unavailable. And because of that, for me personally, we gravitated to the street more. So inside of doing that and finding some kind of a deeper culture, in other words, if I didn't have the culture in the family already built in, then,
But
then
what do you
let
mean
me finish.
we were
So
fine?
it has to be looked for elsewhere.
So you said, and then you started gravitating towards the streets.
Yeah, so a lot of trouble.
How
A lot of
old were
trouble.
you?
Oh, I was probably about 13.
Oh, wow.
Puberty. So, you can imagine your hormones are racing. You don't have,
Yeah.
there's a sense of wanting to belong somewhere. So for me, the street culture was kind of a way of initiation also into kind of manhood for me. It was kind of like, you stay with the tough guys because that's where you got initiated into. We had no form of initiation in our culture anymore. I think that's part of the problem. There's no more form of initiation for young men at all. So that tradition is lost. Women have a different kind of tradition that way, but that's my feeling. So for me, I had to find it in the street, and unfortunately, you had no guidance, and it was very destructive. So
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. So what happens then? So did you finish school?
Barely.
And so when did you leave home? Or how did that happen?
Well, let's just say a lot of drugs later came into play, and so that's what caused the homelessness completely. Is because
So how old were you?
I was
when,
about 22 years old. Yeah. So
But until the age of 22, were you with your parents or?
in and out, I just it's kind of more like in and out, looking for yourself. So go away for days and not come back, things like that, and goes on these long binges and then not come back and finally come back.
But you would still go back to the house, though.
Yeah, the doors were open until drug abuse became deeper, and then it became serious, and then then I was on my own. And that's when I was homeless. Yeah. So.
All right. So when you were you homeless in New York City? Or did you
Yes,
travel?
yes.
You were here.
Yeah.
So how long were you homeless for?
Oh, I would say for about a year and a half.
A year and a half?
At least.
And where'd you stay? Where'd you live when you were homeless?
You know,
Did you stay at
basements, garages, I couldn't sleep in the street. I just couldn't do that. In other words, I think this has to do a little bit with mental illness too. Certain types of mental illness, it's the difference between somebody you see on the subway who doesn't even clean themselves or anything like that, and is on a subway. For me, I couldn't do that. I wasn't that crazy. I was abusing, substances, but I wasn't that insane enough that I made a complete split from civilization that way. But for me, it happened so gradually before I knew it, and then slowly again, like giving up, feeling like you don't belong anywhere, and just collapsing into an abyss of addiction. Actually nothing else matters at that point. So it happened gradually, maybe within, I would say within that year and a half, when I became homeless. It was just like basically a spiraling downward.
So I like what you mentioned, that so you would say that it was your state of mind, a feeling of not belonging anywhere.
Right.
So homelessness wasn't necessarily, because like we talked about before, for me, homeless can be, and I was homeless before when I lost my apartment. I was just staying at my friend's place,
Right.
and I slept on the picnic blanket on the floor, but it felt like a sleepover,
Right. No, this is different.
Yeah, it's different. So what we're talking about here, this is a psychological state of mind of homelessness, where a person is did not, you know what I mean? Like got into the situation.
It's a psychologically unplugging from all society, basically.
So I'm trying to understand. So what is a rebellious state of mind where you're trying to rebel the?
I don't know that it was so much of that. Again, I think the properties of addiction are so insidious. They kind of take over a person without you knowing, and then you just have no way of. How can you be responsible adult that way at all?
So for you say for you was mostly abusing substances.
Yeah, for me, my personal experience. Yeah, that's what led to the homelessness. Yeah.
What about other people? When you were homeless, did you have other homeless friends? Is there like a homeless secret society where homeless people know homeless people?
You start finding, the level, frequencies attract each other, right? So if you're driving into a very low band of frequency, you attract these very low level beings and people and things, and so it kind of fits. You have a little subculture of people you go to get your things, and but ultimately you do whatever you can to survive. That's the thing. And again, remember, it's a very spontaneous kind of thing upon almost predicated on animal instinct. It's like if somebody's there you need, and they just do a job for you, or you have an exchange of something, that's it, and then it's over.
Exchange
and you never
what?
see them again.
Okay, so do homeless people make friends? Like when you're in a homeless
I think
state
so,
of mind?
yeah. I've known many people from that community who became like married, actually, because they were homeless together and they were in trouble together. Yeah, I've seen it a lot of couples, unfortunately, but.
I mean, I don't know if it's unfortunately,
I
but
just saw, because, once you've been in that culture, it takes time. It takes time to break out of it and become, normal to go back into society. You can think of that as almost kind of the lowest scale of society in a sense. So it's a deeply, in some part, an enriching experience if you can come out. The thing is, I reached the threshold. It's like, my bottom is either going to be I'm going to die, or I'm going to die.
What did you do as a homeless person? Did you do any part-time jobs? How did you survive?
How do you hustle? You just take jobs hustling. You just just throwing out garbage, cleaning out abandoned buildings for work, things like that.
So homeless people do work.
I mean, I could find work. It depends on the person. If we're talking about someone who's really mentally ill, they probably can't work, right? And they probably need medication and things. I wasn't at that level. I could still find kind of like some way to kind of blend back into society. It's like almost like a chameleon almost. So it's kind of what they call like a functional addict, if you will.
A functional homeless person.
Yeah, because my threshold was that homelessness. That was it. It's like I'm either going to die, or someone's going to kill me, or I'm going to, it just gets really that animal at that level. That's how deep it goes,
When you were homeless for a year and a half, were you by yourself, or did you?
I was by myself.
By yourself.
Yeah.
So you're in isolation for a year and a half.
Yeah, well, I would visit family sometimes because they were compassionate to me. They knew I was in trouble, so they would let me shower there or sleep over sometimes, things like that, and feed me, things like that. But generally, the bottom the bottom line is, you're either going to get out or it's just going to spiral worse. It's just like anything else, Yuri.
Well, let me just say,
Yeah.
I'm not like ending the conversation or anything, but I'm really genuinely so happy that you got it. Because I'm listening to you, and it's kind of amusing to me. But it's hard to believe. It's amusing because it's hard for me to accept it. The fact that the person I'm talking to right now in front of me would live on the street and eat garbage. Like it's almost like you're telling me a joke. It's hard for me to really believe in. I believe you. It's hard for me to even to accept that someone would do that, because when I see homeless people, to me it's like I said, it's completely different frequency, and I never even try to imagine what their life situation is like. For me, just a homeless person that I don't necessarily want to even engage with.
Right.
And there's a whole story behind this person, and hopefully there is a future.
Well, that's the thing, if at that point I thought, really, that's it, I'm probably going to die and it's over. I think that's where the spiritual involvement starts to take over, hopefully, and the will to live. That's what takes over, because once you start realizing that I have to make a conscious shift in not only my mind, but my heart, start forgiving, clean my body up. And that process takes years and years, but eventually you hopefully that lesson for me personally, Yuri, it was a lesson, to hit the bottom like that and survive, was a lesson for me to open my heart.
What was your rock bottom like during the time of homeless? Which I understand the whole period was the rock bottom, but was there a day?
I don't know if I could say it on camera, but it's just the devastation. You're sleeping in a place where there's drips and it's freezing cold and there's no heat and there's water coming in and it smells like shit and you haven't washed for days and your teeth are falling out and your clothes stink and all I care about is just getting that next hit. That's all that mattered.
What was going through your mind at the time back then? When you were living in that condition, what was going on? What was your thinking throughout the day?
When addiction takes over again that way, the only thing that matters is one purpose, one mission only: get your fix. That's it. That's all.
So you didn't care about...
And that's the lesson learned there, because if that kind of directiveness of energy can be there for something like that, see, I had to learn to completely turn that around to the opposite direction, to the highest potential available. And I think that's more important to talk about, because we're offering solutions now. We could talk about the stories and the devastation. The stories are endless stories we can tell. And, we're compassionate about it. The thing is, what can we do? And the thing is, the person has to have willpower. That's the difference. I've seen it in disease. I've seen it in homelessness. I've seen it in even normal situations. People have to have the will to get better and challenge their own belief systems. So whatever belief systems got me there, I had to dismantle them and prove them wrong.
So how did that happen?
Yeah, it's a good question.
So I kind of got the idea of, there was a dysfunctional, somewhat family upbringing that, caused you a lot of trouble. One trouble led to another. Then you're on the streets. Yeah. Then there's substances. Then you're homeless. Hit the rock bottom. You're pretty much going to either die or change something. So the change happened. Here you are, sitting here. So what do you do now, by the way? You are in a wellness business.
Yeah, and very much like you. And to answer your first question, what was the mind state change?
Yeah.
Well, it was just literally survival. I knew I was going to die if I continued that. That was the end of the line. That was it. So, a couple of things happened that I saw was just like, that's it. I'm either going to.
But why did you feel you were going to die? Because
there was violent things happening, more and more violence. That's the thing, and more serious violence. Like, just like people with guns, hanging out in situations a lot with that. So, being chased and things like that, running out of, buildings and jumping out of buildings. I'm thinking now, I can think in hindsight that, you look back, it's like a comedy, but I can only say that in hindsight, because it would have been only a matter of time before some kind of, violence happened.
Wow.
So that would have led to more institutionalization, right? Back in jail, so things like that, more time in jail. So then that's it. Once at a young age like that, if there's no intervention, there's very little chance for the person to come back. There's always a chance, I want to say. It's tough because people go and you think like it's too late for them, but you never know. I mean, I would have written myself off, to where I was really, but, it's a miracle that I'm here, and that's the grace of God to bless.
And I'd
many
say
of my friends never made it. Many of them are all gone, because of
the homeless people.
Yeah, or just drug buddies, and they're all gone.
It's I like how I don't like it how you like brush things off. It's like, oh, I've been chased and stuff. I wish you talked more about that, but I got the idea. It's like you don't have to, and it's something that the dark place where you don't want to travel back. That's fine. But it's for me, it's such a fascinating experience. It's something that hopefully I'll never experience. Hopefully, and I don't wish that upon anyone. But I think life is a journey. Life is a trip.
Yes.
You had some bad trip back in the day, but it's a trip, and it's different from, you have to go through war in order to know what war is like. Otherwise, you can read about it in books and, never
That's
feel
very
it.
much what it's like. I think about, and in fact, many of the homeless people I was with in the attics were ex-military people because of the trauma, combat veterans, things like that. And I used to talk to them a lot. I just like to talk to the veterans a lot.
Oh, wow.
And, that type of trauma and combat trauma and things, it's very difficult to resolve once they come back.
So homeless state of mind is a traumatized state of mind.
Yes, absolutely.
People who were homeless, they were traumatized one way or another, I'm assuming. And they got in a place where they just did not feel belonging or did not want to belong. Mm-hmm. Interesting. So that helps me feel more compassion for other homeless people.
Never know.
Because it's not something that, he didn't want to work. He's lazy.
You know what? You never know someone's story. That's I'm quick to prejudge too, and I noticed that part of my spiritual practice is to stop that now because I have an extensive spiritual practice, and I think that's key not only for anybody homeless, but now particularly because of this epic time we're in. We all need to have some kind of practice. I think of it as hygiene. So if I don't bathe for a few days, like I remember, I'm going to stink. I'm going to get dirty. I'm going to scratch, probably have fleas and all that stuff. That's no longer necessary. Their spiritual hygiene is relative to what do you practice? Because we're practicing every day anyway something. We're practicing every day our habits, right? So if I don't change those habits that are going to, in a couple of years, determine who I am, then there's going to be a problem. So I had to go deeper into yoga, for me, it was Taoism and Buddhism that really probably saved my life also.
Interesting. So I want to talk about that.
Yeah, sure.
And I lived in India myself for half a year. I used to, Buddhism to me is, I definitely love it.
Yeah.
So tell me, you said you gradually became homeless. Was it a gradual process to get out of there? Was it a day when you woke up and that's it, no more? How did that happen?
That happened very gradually.
It happened gradually also?
That took another 10 years to get back to a normal.
10 years?
About 10 years for me, yeah.
To get out of the homeless state of mind?
Just the state of mind.
Really?
Because the body's first. You clean your body, the body takes care of itself. Right? I can get clean. If I don't do drugs for 3 or 4 days, I can get clean within a few weeks. And if I nurture my body with good nutrition, right, superfoods, things like that, that's the difference. But the body takes care of itself. But the whole thing is the emotional and mental bodies, really, and dismantling and untangling the trauma. So it's years of therapy, years of public assistance, food stamps, and then trying to make your way into society again.
Wow.
That's just that took years to feel anywhere I could fit into anywhere. Because I felt like I had to hide. It's kind of like a veteran. You come back from a battle situation and you're almost like shell shocked.
Wow.
So it's like you're still kind of reliving a lot of these situations that I had been inside, and you go back to a normal situation and you can't relax. It's just I was unable to feel normal anywhere. So that took years of therapy and conditioning, and then slowly getting into meditation.
Wow. Do you have, now that you're you're not homeless and it's years ago, do you still have like habits from that life?
Oh, yeah.
Or like what?
Like what from? Well, go ahead. Habits
like
from
what
good habits or bad habits?
Habits from that homeless, like when you were homeless or in that state of mind. Do you have reflections or something?
Oh yeah, sure. I get like
what?
flashbacks all the time. I have a lot of dreams that often, and they're quite disturbing. The dreams, like that. That I'm back in abandoned buildings, and it's just the brain.
What
trying
about
to heal
habits?
itself. Habits. No, I would say those are pretty cleaned up well. I really made a diligent commitment to live not only a normal life, but then to thrive. And that's what I think we need to talk about in this discussion at some point. It's like, how can we thrive all together? Because as these things happen, what's happening globally now would lead to a lot of people to drinking, drugging, all the addictions now, because they're faced not only with themselves, but also with the external paradigm, which are, we could talk about that a long time, but I'm not going to get into that.
So let me,
place.
If you see another homeless person on the street now, like, what are your thoughts? Do you have any thoughts?
I often go up to them actually,
you do?
and give them money and talk to them a little bit.
Oh, you do?
If they can talk. Some of them are, they're psychotic. So
Yeah.
In fact, I've gone up to a few and they've gone crazy. They go crazy actually when you go near them, obviously, because they've isolated themselves so deeply into this, world. And many of them have entities on them. They have like dark entities attached to them also, I think. But some of them, a lot of veterans I speak to, because they've been in war, so they understand the difference, I think. They have training, so they know they made a choice to, secede from society, but they have their training, so they still can navigate somewhat, So I could have a discussion with them about, what happened to you. I was a tunnel rat in Vietnam. I was, hunter-killer teams in Vietnam. I was... in Korea fighting war. These are like veterans per se.
That is so interesting.
But the other end of it for me were more like, just people down and out. They're just lost souls. Their souls got lost. And I'm here to tell you, you can reclaim yourself, but it has to come deeply from the will. It has to be a strong will to come back.
So let's talk more about that.
Yeah.
So how did you get out of the homelessness? What's helping you now? Like, what's the spiritual solution that if there are homeless people watching, or people whose relatives, friends are homeless and they are trying to figure out the solution, what was the solution?
Yeah, that's tough, because for families, I would say it's very difficult, because unless the person themselves wants to change, there's really nothing they can do for them. Not much, right? Not much. You can support them with love and food, but if they're drug addicts, I wouldn't give them money. I would just give them love and support and plead with them to get help, right? To get help. That's the key, is to show them love. Love is the most powerful thing, right? So that's the key. Really show a deep sense of, because these people who are lost, particularly in addiction, are just wanting to connect. They just want to feel connected again often. They've lost the connection to others and to life, So they insulate themselves with this bubble of abuse, Obviously, they don't know it is but they're so in pain already that anything else is just more pain. After a while, it just becomes normal, unfortunately.
So what's if they decide they want to
the key is the decision. Once the person makes a conscious decision and they're really authentic about it, then I would say they have to get, depending on what the type of homelessness is if it's, psychotic and they have mental illness, then to get help that way. If it's drug abuse, to get, I would say, good counseling, but it has to be really good. And I would actually urge spiritual counseling.
Yeah. Well, Alex, because we have to go to bed soon.
Time to go to sleep. Yuri, time to go to sleep.
All right, thank you, Alexa. Before we go to sleep,
Yes.
so what do you do now? Like, I want to know,
Yeah.
so we had the story, a war story, which you survived, and thanks to spirituality, so where are you now?
Yeah,
what are you
interesting.
now? And let me know. Let us
I
know.
would
What do
say
you-
now
what do you-
I'm in a great place, because I've understood how to build my body back, particularly with raw foods. And I think, again, it's eating less dead animals. Let's call it what it is, right? And eating more live food. Anything that's living increases the voltage of your aura. So in other words, anything that's alive, like living plants and fruit, increase the aura level. Your frequency starts to rise, actually. Anything that's dead takes away from that. It's like a bank account almost. So anything that's live has live charge in it, right? In other words, to stay alive, it has to have a charge, right? Otherwise, it completely dies. So that's the key, was first nutrition. Second was a lot of emotional and mental help. So I got the therapies I needed, a lot around, cleaning up childhood trauma and reliving that and going through that whole process of cleaning that. Most of it through good practitioners, but also by medicine work, plant medicine actually. So if you ever heard of ayahuasca or psilocybin mushrooms,
You've done it?
these organisms are millions of years old. So their intelligence is uniquely tied in with human development actually for millions of years. So cannabis, I don't use cannabis myself, but it is a teacher plant. It's just abused. That's the problem. People don't understand how to use it and pray to and honor the spirit of the plant so that you can journey and reclaim your parts of yourself. See, because you have to, my experience was I had to claim myself. No one's coming to get me. Or that little boy who was ever, traumatized back in space somewhere. I had to go get myself. That's the willpower. Otherwise, it's the government's fault, it's Trump, it's you, it's them, and that's what they like. There's forces in play now that want the whole planet with this shutting down. It's not a good thing. And that's, to me, this is our time to rise, to understand the inner authority within you, and to live to that inner authority. Trust that greater than the narrative. That's what we're going through now. That's the real test now. Am I going to be addicted to my things now? Or my credit cards or my phone? I could still be addicted to my thought habits, my patterns. But I do is go into meditation every day to clear the real estate, to get a good internet, connection to spirit, to clear my brain, because the brain will go on and on. But if my heart can open up, that's where the power is. See, people think they are their brain, their thoughts, their emotions. They're not. It's just the brain doing that. In the West, this is what we think. I've been taught enough in Buddhism to know your mind is in your heart, because wherever your heart is, if you're not in it, you're not there.
And Alexander, all this is you're saying is very beautiful. I'm so happy that we're having this sleepover conversation. I'm learning a lot. Before we go to sleep, do you want to say what you do now, like the services you offer and when people can find you?
Oh, sure, yeah.
What
I do a lot of men's work now, actually, to help men who've been traumatized, things like that. That's been very, very powerful, to hold a trusted circle where men can come and just relieve themselves of burdens, stuff like that. I do men's work, but particularly for me, the Taoist and the Buddhist practices, meditation and cultivation practices have been, I can't tell you how important that is. You must have a practice today, some kind of spiritual, mental, and emotional practice. Otherwise, you'll probably get caught in the drama.
But how do people find do you have a website?
I have a website. It's under construction for this new age, actually.
Okay.
But it's www.fitfocus.net. And my phone number is 917-992-8237. People can call me and reach me out from there.
All right. Alexander, thank you so much. I think you are such a fascinating person. What you've gone through is mind-blowing, and I'm going to need time to digest it. And I definitely would love to continue this conversation with you later also.
Yeah, I think we should. It's a narrative conversation that needs to be continued, because there's so much trauma now coming. We all come from some kind of trauma.
And I always say, and I want to conclude this episode saying that we are what we are allowing ourselves to be, and we have what we are allowing ourselves to have. It's so important to have a healthy mindset and a state of mind, because we project the reality that we have. And with that note, we're going to bed, we're going to sleep, otherwise Alexa will not let me alone. And have a good night, everyone. Good night,
Yuri.
Alex.
Thank you, brother.